नामामवतु श्री सरस्वती कामकोटिपीठनिवासिनी मामवतु श्री सरस्वती राजाधिराज पूजित चरण राजीवनयन रमणीय वदन सुजन मनोरथ पूरण चतुर निजगळ शोभित मणिमय हार अज भव वंदित वासुदेव चरणार्पित सकल वेदस रामामवतु श्री सरस्वती कामकोटिपीठनिवासिनी मामवतु श्री सरस्वती. Thank you.
Thank you, Avni, for that soulful rendition of the invocation. I would now request the President of Laghu Udyog Bharati Karnataka, Dr. Sachin B. Sabnis, for the opening remarks and welcome address.
Good evening, everyone. Dignitaries on the dais, Dr. S. Jaishankarji, Honorable Minister for External Affairs, Government of India, H.U.S. Krishnaji, National Past President of Laghu Udyog Bharati and also Chairman of IMS Foundation, Narayan Prasanna, General Secretary of Laghu Udyog Bharati Karnataka, respected honorary councils, industry leaders, presidents, secretaries, past presidents of industry associations from FKCCI, CASIA, and all other associations, distinguished members, participants, guests, and invitees, I extend a very, very warm welcome to this beautiful evening out here. We have heard Dr. Jaishankarji a lot of time. Many of us might have heard his videos and his responses to some of the statements. They have become so popular that the other day I saw one video in which Piyush Goyal ji was referring to him as a rock star. And my son is just 20 years old, and he said, I can't miss this opportunity to meet Dr. Jaishankar. A very good evening to you all. It is a privilege for Laghu Udyog Bharati to have and host such a wonderful evening today, wonderful gathering today evening. I'm humbled by presence of so many luminaries, business leaders who are present here for this session. For the benefit of our guest, I would briefly introduce Laghu Udyog Bharati. Laghu Udyog Bharati, basically an organization representing micro, small and medium industries with more than 40,000 members across India and presence in more than 28 states. We have our presence, strong presence in Karnataka with members in more than 26, 27 districts of Karnataka, as well as full-fledged units, more than 13 full-fledged units and more than 1,600 members out here. Laghu Udyog Bharati Karnataka has been specifically active in number of activities, and the most famous three verticals that we work on, one is called as a Gram Shilpi, where we work with the local artisans to improve the entrepreneurship in the rural area. Secondly is Tech Bharat, where we try to support the startups and help the startups in different ecosystems such as agriculture, education, health, etc. And the third one is IMS, Indian Manufacturing Show, which comes under the purview of IMS Foundation, which is the foundation of Laghu Udyog Bharati. Regarding IMS, our past president and IMS chairman, H.U.S. Krishnaji, would be making his presentation and updating you about the activities of IMS. With this brief introduction about Laghu Udyog Bharati, let us dive into today's topic of India. First of all, we all should be proud, and everyone, most of the exporters out here, we should congratulate each one of you. This year, India has achieved a record $750 billion plus of exports. We have heard multiple number of times when Angus Madison wrote about the economies of the millennia of different nations, and we heard that till 17th century, India was contributing more than 32% to the GDP. But over 200 years of British rule got us down. But what we are seeing since last 10, 12 years, what growth we are seeing and what future we have, the Amrit Kal, this is one of the indications. $750 billion in export is one of the indication. And we know, diving down to Karnataka, Karnataka has been a global innovation and a startup hub with more than 400 plus global R&D centers and 4,000 plus startups located only in Bangalore. It ranks first in the Niti Aayog's India Innovation Index, and third highest number of startups globally are located in Bangalore. Traditionally, Karnataka is also an engineering hub. I came from a place called Belagavi, known for its foundry, hydraulics, crankshafts. We have Hubli Dharwad. I'm mentioning these two places because sir would be visiting them tomorrow. He would be going to Dharwad and then to Belagavi. Hubli Dharwad, which is known for its wall manufacturing. Also, Belgaum district and Hubli district. Belgaum is specifically known for even a sugar bowl of Karnataka. So basically looking at the export potential that exists in Karnataka, the total merchandise exports that Karnataka is looking for in coming 2025 is close to $35 billion. And in total, last year, Karnataka has achieved close to $90 billion of exports, majority of which have come out from the software and the service sector. In software and service sector, Karnataka ranks #1 on All India Index when it comes for the exports, but it still needs to catch up when it comes to the merchandise exports. So there is a lot of things need to be done when it comes to the exports for merchandise. And looking at present even performance of India, when we speak about $750 billion of export and a projected GDP of close to 3.7 trillion, it would be around, say, 50% or 20% of the GDP. But we need to increase this export. If we have to make India really Vishwaguru, the contribution of export in our total GDP has to be high. And with the kind of a demographic dividend and demographic window we have with the young, aspirational young youth, that is the way to look forward for us. And exports is going to play a very, very important part in this activity. And specifically, engineering exports, where we generate a lot of employment, not only for the trained or educated youth, but also for our rural and the citizens or the young generation from the rural or the tribal areas. That is very important. So engineering export is also something we need to seriously look at. Karnataka has a lot of policy matters when it comes to the industry policy as well as the exports. We have more than 34 operational SEZs, 61 SEZs with formal approval, and 50 notified SEZs as on July 2022. So, as I said, Karnataka has its policy places in its place. It just needs to take off from here. And if India has to become a global sourcing head, each state in the Indian context has to perform and has to contribute towards this export. So in conclusion, I would say that Karnataka is one of the top business destinations for investments, and not only for software, but also for a merchandise exports. And with this small thought to ponder, I again, once again, welcome you all, and especially Dr. S. Jaishankarji. Thank you very much for spending your evening with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for a very cordial welcome address and also a comprehensive introduction about IMS and Laghu Udyog Bharati. Thank you, Dr. Sachin B. Sabnis. On behalf of all of us, it's my pleasure to request the Honorable Union Minister and the dignitaries to kindly come to the front and light the lamp to signal the beginning of this all-important session. India, the globe's next biggest sourcing hub, a session with the Honorable Union Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar. Ladies and gentlemen, our language is the language of clapping only. It's indeed a matter of great pride for all of us. The Honorable Union Minister has taken time off and come here and address all of us. Laghu Udyog Bharati, as we all know, is the All India organization in the service of micro and small industries. And IMS is very famously known as manufacturing the economy, the IMS Foundation, and now offering floral tributes to Bharat Mata. Bharat Mata ke pushparchaneyannu sallisi Bharat Mate ಆಶೀರ್ವಾದ ಸದಾ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೇಲೆ ಇರಲಿ ಅನ್ನುವಂತಹ ಮಾಹಿತಿ. Thank you, sir. We'll have the first presentation by the chairman of IMS, Shri H.V.S. Krishna. For that, I would request the dignitaries, the Honorable Minister, to kindly take the seat in the front so that Shri H.V.S. Krishna will be able to present it.
Janan, ready Dalwa? Yeah. Good evening to everybody. Good evening to Dr. Jaishankar ji, Honorable Minister for External Affairs, Government of India. It is our luck today is available to our Laghu Udyog Bharati and IMS Foundation today. Regarding Laghu Udyog Bharati activities, my colleague, our State President, Mr. Sachin Sabnis, has already explained to you. I will just take a few minutes for the flagship event of Laghu Udyog Bharati, that is India Manufacturing Show. Amongst all the other activities, India Manufacturing Show is number one throughout India, and it is taken a very good shape now, and this is the 6th edition what we are organizing. The first India Manufacturing Show, it has started in 2010, then again in 2012, 2014, 17, 22, and our next event is on 2023, November 2nd, 3rd, 4th at Bangalore International Exhibition. This particular platform is to support the marketing support to all MSME sectors and bigger industries to get their business and get the good partners and for the joint ventures, technology transfers, etc., etc. All our earlier events were chaired by such a great personalities like Anand Mahindra, Vikram Kirloskar, Sajjan Jindal ji, and Baba Kalyani ji, and of course our Ramdas ji is here. They are all chaired by all these leading personalities. Now, just for a few minutes, we will give the presentation of Laghu Udyog Bharati's flagship event, IMS 2023's exhibition of on November 2nd, 3rd, 4th at Bangalore International Exhibition Center.
India, a land of ancient traditions, vibrant culture, and a rapidly growing economy. India is also a hub for innovation, technology, and manufacturing. The India Manufacturing Show, a premier exhibition for the manufacturing industry in India, has been one of the most eagerly awaited events across the industrial spectrum of India. The past events of IMS, like IMS 2022, have raised the bar across the manufacturing companies of India and continue to entice new participants year after year. IMS 2022 previous highlights: 273 exhibitors, 15,269 business visitors, 200 plus crore business generation, 800 products displayed. Welcome to IMS 2023, an event where dreams turn into vision, aspirations transform into ambitions, technology morphs into intelligence, networking translates into business opportunities. The 6th IMS 2023 key highlights: 800 plus exhibitors, 30,000 plus business visitors, 20,000 square meter exhibition area, 5 plus participating countries. The 6th edition, scheduled for November 2023, focuses on the theme of Make in India and showcases its objectives in 25 sectors. IMS 2023 is all set to bring global business opportunities in India, from automotive and aerospace to electronics and engineering. The India Manufacturing Show covers all aspects of the manufacturing industry. The Laghu Udyog Bharati, Karnataka, is the state chapter of Laghu Udyog Bharati, catering to 24 districts of Karnataka, and works towards the empowerment of entrepreneurs in micro and small sectors, and has a membership of over 1,500 members. Here's what the chairman of IMS Foundation has to say about IMS.
India Manufacturing Show is the flagship event of Laghu Udyog Bharati and the IMS Foundation, which is initiated during 2010. Since then, we have organized very successfully 5 editions of IMS Show, that is 2010, 2012, 2014, 2017 and 2022. After the resounding success of 2022 exhibition of our 5th edition, we are organizing the 6th edition of IMS 2023 during 2nd, 3rd, 4th of November 2023 at Bangalore International Exhibition Center.
The 6th edition is scheduled from 2nd to 4th November 2023 at BIEC Bengaluru. It focuses on the theme of Make in India, with a special emphasis on promoting Make in India objectives in 25 sectors. IMS 2023 is a thought leadership forum that brings together all the stakeholders of manufacturing, engineering, aerospace and defense on a common platform. Here is a glance at some of the distinguished personalities who have graced our previous edition. The India Manufacturing Show is a great opportunity for companies from all over the world to showcase their products and services to a global audience. It's a platform for innovation, collaboration, and growth. IMS features a series of seminars, workshops, and conferences with industry experts and thought leaders, and offers you an opportunity to meet and interact with the who's who of India's manufacturing spectrum, from varied sectors like automation, robotics and drones, electrical and electronics, auto components, general engineering, energy, environment and EV transportation, aerospace and defense engineering. The key highlights of IMS 2023 would be the aerospace sector and defense sector, apart from automation and general engineering. Actuation systems, aerodynamics design, aero fastening, assembly and tooling, aerospace systems engineering, composites and advanced materials, engines, propulsion, manufacturing, special processes and certification, modeling and simulation, structures and materials, testing and validation, aviation, space systems, defense sector, DPSUs, defense R&D firms, multifunction surveillance target radars, defense labs. To achieve this vision, we at IMS have collaborated with Triune Exhibitors Private Limited, which acts as an interface between government, industry, media, and academics. Triune Exhibitors is amongst few Indian exhibition organizers with a commendable track record of organizing over 50 exhibitions, including Amtex, Plastasia, Print and Backtech World Expo, and Elasia. IMS 2023 is more than just an exhibition. It's a platform for innovation, growth, and collaboration that brings the world to India. Join us at the India Manufacturing Show and be a part of the future of manufacturing.
The sixth edition now for IMS 23 is mainly focused on defense and aerospace and other engineering sectors. I request all the stakeholders to come and participate in the 6th edition under Atmanirbhar Bharat. All the stakeholders to come and participate in this exhibition and make the program a grand success. Dhanyawad. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was also an innovative presentation. We saw him live and recorded. So probably it's one of the first of its kind presentation. Thank you, sir. And now I would request Mr. T.K. Ramesh, the Managing Director of Ace Designer, to give us a presentation on engineering and manufacturing. Shri Ramesh. Yeah, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Laghu Udyog Bharat, for this opportunity. My own words of welcome to Dr. Jaishankar. And I am one of the privileged few who have had an opportunity to interact with Dr. Jaishankar when he was in China and during our setup at China. Without further ado, in my 3 to 5 minutes that have been allotted, I'd like to quickly take you all through and give a brief to Dr. Jaishankar about what it is from an MSME perspective in mechanical engineering and manufacturing. India, we've all been talking about India becoming the next world sourcing hub. And what all of you all would have noticed is even today, we spoke about IT, we spoke about software, and we spoke about India and Bangalore, Karnataka being number 1 in applied services, ITES, and things like that. But I'd like to remind all of us, it all started with mechanical engineering in India many, many years ago. The 40s and the 50s were the time of the HALs and the HMTs that really put Karnataka and Bangalore on the manufacturing map and is responsible for the large manufacturing base that the state has. A quick overview, the next slide please. See, the manufacturing ecosystem in Karnataka, we've got industrial estates, parks, and like one of the speakers before me spoke of Belgaum, we are the first aerospace park that's here. We've got a lot of work that's happening in the aerospace, thanks to many established research institutes, HAL, etc. We've got a machine tool park that's coming up, and also huge machine tool activity that happens in Bangalore, specifically in Karnataka as a whole. I believe we contribute 52% of the machine tool manufacturing that happens in India in the state of Karnataka, and we also contribute for 62% of the exports that happen from a national perspective. So we've got toy clusters, we've got 5 auto clusters, we have a large number of engineering and diploma colleges, we've got scientific and technical research establishments, and last but not the least, we've got GI tags, which again give authenticity, the Chanpatna toys, which is again manufacturing that I'd like to really talk about. So we have all of this in Karnataka. The next slide, please. So what is it that we contribute? Karnataka is the 5th position by contribution to the manufacturing GDP of the country. We are a large contributor, about 8% of the total manufacturing GDP comes from Karnataka. We've also been growing at a rate of about 13.88 to be precise for the last year. We have a good established base, like I already mentioned, for machine tools, aeronautics, aerospace, automotive, defense, and the infrastructure industry. We can never forget the earth movers, the BEMLs, and a large number of MSME who are supplying parts, services, and equipment to these public sectors and private sectors. The sunrise areas in manufacturing, of course, are the new electronics manufacturing. All of us are aware of the big names that are coming to Karnataka, specifically to Bangalore, to manufacture mobile phones, pads, wearables, name it, and it's all coming here to Karnataka. Semiconductors is again another huge new technology, cutting-edge technology. There are a lot of activities that's happening. I was told recently in one of the conversations that I had with a very important personality that Bangalore alone has more than 500,000 NLSI chip design engineers that are here. So if the design is here, manufacturing, I believe, is obviously the next step. So this is what it is, and we have a large MSME base. We've got an MSME base of close to 8 to 10 million registered users who are in manufacturing. I'm not talking about services, I'm talking about manufacturing, whether it's textile, whether it's toys, whether it's mechanical engineering, whether it's fabrication, precision fabrication. So this is what we already have. So what do we do with all this? Next slide, please. So the requirement for the MSME to get into global markets, I believe they must have the competency and the ability to compete and start thinking and behaving like the developed manufacturing ecosystems that are available across the globe. And when I say across the globe, I wouldn't want to mention certain geographies, but the latest thing that is happening in the geopolitical system of the +1, how is it that we could take up the best that as a replacement for the +1 ecosystem that is being put into the place. So we have a list of things: adopting manufacturing for the world, benchmarking with global practices, redesigning and enhancing our systems, innovation. And innovation, I believe, happens best in clusters and in the MSME. What is it that has been happening in the automotive industry where we are such large exporters? We have the largest two-wheeler and small car manufacturing base, which large numbers are being exported. I believe this cost effectiveness has been given to this big industry thanks to the supply chain and thanks to the MSME sector, which has been able to provide innovation and cost effectiveness to these big global giants that today, who is who of the automotive manufacturing industry are here in India. Assessment, performance, and most important, it is about Brand India, where a lot of work is being done. We've got IBEF, we've got the platform, we've got this movement of Make in India, Make for the World that are happening. So thanks to all of this, and definitely now thanks to the IT revolution that happened 2 decades ago, that Brand India is here, but a lot more needs to be done. Next slide, please. So what are the challenges? I believe for the MSME, access to capital is the first and one of the biggest challenge. Leadership development. We've got wonderful entrepreneurs who can start and bring up the units up to a certain level. But what happens after that level? How does it grow? How do we build in the second layer? How do we bring in functional competence? And leadership is all about mastery, growth, and development. So it's about management practices. It's about skill enhancement for the functional mastery that we need to bring about, and the functional expertise, because everything has got quality, everything has got cost, and everything needs to be done in a very, very innovative process. So I'd like to conclude the next slide by saying we've tried to put together what is it that I have been saying. Where are we now? Where should we go? What is the enablement that is required? And what are the policy interventions that we would like to request from the Government of India and specifically from the Ministry of External Affairs? Personally, like I said, we've had interaction with many of the embassies. We've worked very, very closely with the Chinese, in China with the embassies. There are the commercial attaches. There's a lot of work that they are doing. How is it we can create for the MSME sector a kind of a connection, a kind of an interface which could help showcase and take the MSME to a global level? And if this happens, I don't believe there's any dearth of talent. I don't believe there's any dearth of innovation, and I don't believe that there's any lack of people here in India who could make this challenge of India becoming a world source for manufacturing. Next slide, please. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity, and I'd like to hand over this presentation to Dr. Jaishankar so that we could put together some kind of a plan and take this forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shri T.K. Ramesh. Indeed, India is the right place to be in, and specifically Bengaluru, Karnataka. Thank you, sir. We also have with us Shri Ananta N, Gnani.ai founder, his presentation on software solutions.
Good evening, all. It's a humble day for me. I mean, I'm talking to the External Affairs Minister of this country, a dream come true. Sir, I represent the startup which everyone here is aware of. I'm an AI startup based out of Bangalore. So, sir, what is Karnataka? Karnataka was once famous for gold mines. And today, the software experts is nothing but Karnataka as a digital gold mine. And out of 245 billion technological exports that has happened in India in this physical, 80 billion is coming from Karnataka, largely from IT and IES. And probably 15 billion of it is coming through the products that are being built in India and shipped out of. And look at the way it has been transformed. The technology industry has created a 25+ lakh jobs of high profile engineering. These engineers today play a role in everything we do in our life. Whether we book a cab, whether we transfer money, a majority of it is built in Karnataka for global audiences. And what has it done to the state? It has also created 50 lakh plus jobs in the subsequent support systems that is used for the technology. And coming to the startup world where I belong to, there are around 10,000 plus DIP certified startups in Karnataka and 50 plus unicorns out of the 110 unicorns in India in Bangalore alone. Sir, today, next slide. Today where we are and where we are heading towards. If you look at what happened in the 90s and 2000s for IT and IE BPOs, today a product-led growth is happening from country like India. The product-led growth is going to be exponential. Today we are at that tipping point where we believe the next 100 billion or 200 billion is going to potentially skyrocket from India through product-led growth than the IT and ITS. And the few things that I think this can be done faster is few of the support. But sir, few things that we would require from a startup delegation perspective. Why don't we use our extended embassies as a promotional for our startups? Create delegations of startups solving specific problems, have the embassies set up business meetings, business dinners, etc., and solve problems globally. For example, the tech stack that is being built for UPI today is going to be leveraged in 14 plus nations. I think multiple such technology stack is going to evolve from India, and the things that startups need or the product companies need, one in the area of business, essentially with G20 coming in, India being the leader, sir, specifically targeted to G20 nations, can we rally a bunch of startups which can solve problems across companies in this G20 nations, starting now till September. And next, preferred buyer options in procurement of technology. Indian government, states across countries spends billions of dollars in procurement of software technology today, which can be displaced by product companies built from India. And is there a preferred buying policy for this created? Again, sir, the technology today we see the huge funding uses is largely focused on B2C, consumer app, but large deep tech companies like AI, semiconductor requires long gestation period, and it requires capital to grow. Few things, there are multiple things happening, but if it can be unified in a single sector, looking at financing and across all sectors, could be seed, could be growth, bringing debt financing. Today, when we write to a standard regular debt financing arm, it is done on assets. for a software company, asset is nothing but its IP and laptop and the brain, and there is no assets in the book other than that. No bank would give a loan to a software company on this. Is there a new methodology? It could be monthly recurring revenue-based discounting or IP-based discounting, sort of debt financing that could be offered to companies like us. And again, sir, this is a long ask. This is like an youngster, teenager asking his parents for multiple things. But, sir, the export exemptions that the large BPOs, ITS softwares get, can every software exporter, irrespective of size and scale, can be given exemptions, the same benefits a company that is part of STPI gets. This is another ask that I have, and largely the talent and trade. There is a large thing happening. I know that for semiconductor, the government of India set up a specific syllabus that can be used. Similarly, can that be put across all areas of engineering, in deep tech, for AI in healthcare, AI in language processing, etc. And largely, sir, this is like startups are there today which can typically bring in next $200 billion revenue for this country. And they are like young startup. You can imagine us like your teenage kid who who thinks that there is limitless possibilities in the world that can be conquered, but requires some guidance and support across the spectrum. I would want to just request everyone here, encourage startups, and especially, sir, request you to see under a single framework of policy if the startups can be, there are multiple parts of this in different forms and factors, but they are not unified. Under a unified spectrum, if it is all brought together, focused on deep tech, semiconductor, and high growth potential, I think our dream of achieving 5 trillion and 1 trillion from technology sales will be achieved soon. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Shri Anantayan, for that presentation. Before we move further, we would like to acknowledge the presence of some of the major exporters of Karnataka. I would request them to kindly rise in their places. Mr. P. Ramdas, Managing Director of ACE Manufacturing Systems. Mr. L.S. Umesh, Director and CEO of ACE Manufacturing Systems, is also here. And also Mr. Anand HP, the Director of Global Sourcing India of DMG Model. Thank you, sir. And now I would request the Honorable Union Minister to kindly come back on stage along with the other dignitaries, please. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Minister for External Affairs, Dr. S. Jaishankar, we all know is indeed a role model personality. We are all privileged and fortunate enough to be here to listen to his words of wisdom. So please put your hands together. I'll not take much time. And let's welcome Padma Shri Dr. S. Jaishankar.
Shri HVS Krishna ji, Shri Sabnis ji, Shri Prasanna ji, dear friends, let me say what a great pleasure it is to be here with all of you today and discuss what I think is a very key subject for India's future, especially as we are entering Amrit Kaal, which is how do we make India the next biggest sourcing hub. I listened to your remarks and also to the presentations with a great deal of interest. And, they only reminded me why, for me, it's always a very special feeling to come back to Bengaluru and to Karnataka. It's a very special feeling because, when I look at this city and this state, in many ways, over the last maybe 3 decades, maybe more, it is actually the face of India, the image of India to the world. But it is an image which has grown out of actually some achievements, some of which actually go back maybe even a century. And I was almost nostalgic listening to you, Rameshji, because you spoke about HAL and BEMIL. And I first came to this city 60 years ago, because at that time my grandfather was the chairman of HAL and also the chairman of BEMIL. So for me, it is a natural association. In a way, it is a kind of a family association. And I must share with you, after he retired from that, he did, at that time we did not know this word called startup, but he had a small company in Old Mysore Road making cables. And other family members of mine were involved in SMEs, in the Koramangala industrial estate, in Delhi, in Noida. So it is a sector with which I, in a way, I have grown up. Not just grown up, I have, in fact, in Delhi itself for a long time, I didn't live in government accommodation. I lived in the middle of this industrial estate called Noida. So my neighbors were all actually SME owners. So I know their challenges, I know their pains, I know their opportunities, I know their contribution. So I want to tell you, in a way, today I may be minister, I may have done 40 years in the diplomatic service, but in many ways I am also part of the Laghu Udyog family. I want you to know that. And in fact, when COVID happened, some stage, I think I must have mentioned something in passing to Prime Minister. And Prime Minister's memory is like infinite. During COVID period, actually every minister regularly, we were all given tasks that, you have to check up on this, you have to follow this, etc. So one of the tasks which he gave me was, he said, keep checking up with, especially in Noida, with the SME, how are they dealing with it, because everybody had a different challenge which came out of COVID. So how do we deal with that? So actually it gave me an opportunity during COVID period to even renew my links. So many of those thoughts were very much in my mind as I address all of you. Now, you can see today that there is a lot which has changed in India in the last decade, which has changed directly in terms of the interests of the country, of the industry, especially of MSMEs. So if I were to pick a few examples, one of course is how much easier it has become to do business. When we, in 2014, we were ranked 142. 5 years later, we were ranked 63. For some reason, they stopped making those indexes. Had they continued, I'm sure we would have been very much higher. Similarly, there is a Global Innovation Index. Again, in the Global Innovation Index, our position has gone up very significantly. We would be among the top 40 innovators. Regarding our exports, I think you all know, yesterday, in fact, Piyush Goyalji spoke at some length about what the achievements of industry has been. I think there is good reason for us to be proud, but there is something I have to share with you in that regard. But again, I want you to understand how much of a journey it has been. Because after listening to him this morning, this afternoon before I came, I just texted, WhatsApped him. I said, just remind me, what was the 2014 export figure? I don't know how many of you remember it. It was $468 billion. So from 468, we have gone up to 762 in the last 9 years. But it isn't only exports. In many cases, it is very, very consequential. And Krishnaji, I was listening to you. Look at a field like defense. You know, from what used to be our defense external procurement, there has been a 36% drop in our external procurement, which means that 36% today is being made in India and being made by people like this. And for a country, you know, always it used to come, India, biggest importer of defense products. Okay. It is one title we don't need. Okay. I mean, I'm waiting for the day when they don't say that about us. But I know that day will come, because today our defense exports are 13,000 crores and growing very, very rapidly. So we are looking today at the possible, you know, we have exported helicopters. We are today in the midst of exporting a missile to Philippines. We are exporting weapon systems, we are exporting vehicles. So the point I wish to make is that in this entire period, the image of India, the capability of India, the branding of India, the expectations of India, all of this is changing. And it's not just these examples I cited. Just look at some of the really impressive things which have happened. You know, take COVID. We actually, yes, even in the vaccine which was made, you know, for a company which was outside, we were one of the most efficient producers on scale of Covishield. But we also had an invented in India vaccine. It was not just made in India vaccine. So the fact that, you know, in a normal situation, we would have been somewhere at the end of the queue on what would have been a very urgent necessity. This time, we were not only ahead in the queue, we were ahead in the queue with our own product. I'll give you a very different example. Look at what is happening today in 5G. Okay. You are talking of meeting, you remember meeting us, we met, Rameshji and I met in China. Okay. At that time, we were struggling with 2G, 3G. Okay. Today we are one of the fastest deployers of 5G, and one of the key companies for our 5G stack is actually from Bengaluru. So see what is the extent really of change, and what is possible if we actually put our minds to it. That is really, to my mind, the real takeaway. So, yes, we were known as the, you know, back office of the world, as the IT center of the world. Bengaluru itself became like a business term. But today we are also known as the pharmacy of the world. You know, I look forward to the day when we are known as the engineers of the world. That day to me is not very far away. And again, I refer to what you said about, you know, if you look at today the very critical struggle that is going on in the semiconductor world, that is a huge opportunity there. It's an opportunity which is a very natural opportunity for a talented society, because at the end of the day, the hardware is only the outcome. The chips has a lot of other things which go into it, and that is really where our opportunity is. But I've been speaking in a way at a national level, but I also want to reflect on what has been the contribution of Karnataka and Bengaluru to this, because, you know, every state has to contribute. That is how a nation grows. But states which have a long history of industry, I mean, as you said, mechanical engineering, this is the home of mechanical engineering in the country. You know, the state which is progressive which has been global, which has been really a source historically over the last 100 years of industrial capabilities and innovation in this country. That is the state today which has to lead. So I can tell you for the rest of the country, what happens in Karnataka, what are the achievements, your successes, your progress, this is something which is very, very crucial. So I looked at some of the you can say metrics of Karnataka in the last decade. And what I see before me is a state which is number one in the ease of doing business in the Niti Aayog index, which is the best performer when it comes to startups, which has raised, I believe, more than $7.5 billion last year alone, which is number one in the India Innovative Index, which has, I think, 35% of the total unicorns in the country. I mean, I don't know if I got the number right. 50%, is it? Okay, whatever, I'm sure you are right. Which is actually today the number one magnet for FDI inflows into this country, which is the third largest tech cluster. I was told it was fourth, but I heard it is third. I'm always willing to be promoted here. Which actually today is thinking ESDM, electronic semiconductor design and manufacturing, and which is not just today thinking Bengaluru, but beyond Bengaluru tech clusters. So I look, when I come here, for me, this is a source of great hope, great encouragement, great optimism. And I would very much like to see that the choices which all of you make continue to be that which will support the progress, the modernization, the employment generation, the innovation, the creativity, the startup culture of this state, because that is so important for national development. Now, having said that, as probably the most frequently traveled Indian, I also want to share with you that there is a great buzz in the world today about India. One part of this buzz you are seeing in this G20. Okay. You're seeing it in G20 because while many countries did it like a routine, it is my turn, so I will. Prime Minister Narendra Modi saw it as an opportunity, as something different which we can use for our long-term gain and growth. So I want to take this opportunity very briefly, because you've been reading about G20, and the young gentleman who was the last presenter even spoke saying, what can G20 do? See, G20 has about 200 meetings. It will be held in almost 60 cities of India, in every state and union territory of India. And the result of that will be, in contemporary parlance, the most powerful influencers of the world will be coming to India for the G20. And if they can feel the energy, the buzz in India, all that you people talk about, think about, and you do, there will be a completely different image of India. They will get over that, what was a 1980s, 70s, 80s, even 90s thinking about India. That this new India, I can explain it, I can say things to them. But when they come to India and meet people and travel to cities, and I'm already hearing it from them. I met somebody and who from some other country, who was a friend of many years. And I asked him, I said, look, what is the change? And he'd been out, after 5 years he was coming back. He said, one change I see. He said, I see construction everywhere. I see airports being constructed, I see metro being constructed, I see roads in the making, I can see something is happening on the railways. So that feeling that, look, something big is happening on the infrastructure. The second change, again, these are very objective people who know India, who often are measuring India, today's India, 2023 India, against India of 10 years ago. Now, one of them told me, I have been going to your universities. In the old days, when I went to a university, people would say these are the best 5 students, gold medalist, going to be gold medalist, whatever. You said today they say, he has 3 patents, he has 2 patents, he's got this invention. And in fact, I myself see, the number of places they'll say, in your program, sir, please give us 1 hour. Our students want to show you something. And what they want to show you, every one of my big problem is that 1 hour will become 3 hours. Because every place you go to, every student you meet who's showing you something, is showing you something which is actually is some angle I have not thought through. And which is something very, very practical. And it is not something for which you need a big company. This is a student of a university who's doing it. So, one part of it is the fact that they're doing it. For me, the bigger change is the fact that we have created a culture, an environment today, where they are encouraged to believe that this is a way by which they can progress and the country can progress. That, to me, that change of mindset is actually very, very big. So let me speak a little bit about what is the buzz. Okay. What is it, I would say, last 9 years? What has changed in India that the world has noticed? And I'll give you maybe 10 examples. First of all, exactly this issue which we are all talking. We may call it Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, production-linked incentives, MSME support. But the bottom line is this. After this, global competition that was spoken about, after COVID, today's world is not comfortable with the supply chains that exist. There is a demand in the world for more redundant, resilient, reliable supply chains. And that means there is an encouragement, the world wants more centers of manufacturing. The world wants more sources of supply. It is up to us to see how can we meet that demand. And to meet the demand, obviously a lot of it, responsibility is of the government. The government has to drive the infrastructure, which is why, in fact, all this infrastructure modernization is of a huge help. The government has to have the right policies of incentive and support. I accept that. But it is also very much the opportunity and the chance for business that the government can do one hand, to close it out, the other hand has to come from business. And today, there is a very special reason why the world is looking for India. And that reason is, along with manufacturing, there is a big debate happening in the digital domain. The digital domain is very, very concerned about trust and transparency, which is the security of the data, the privacy of the data, the residency of the data, the harvesting of the data. So, where does that data go and who handles it? This is a very big debate today. So, if you put the two together, reliable supply chain with trusted digital reputation, to my mind, that is really the combination which India is looking at. This is actually a big chance. Because one thing about us, one of the reasons you have really a growing, the FDI increase that you see, the willingness of more more and more companies to work with even smaller, even with startups. Indian industry actually has global trust. When people send data to India, they are absolutely confident that data would be handled the way the data should be handled. And as you know, that doesn't happen all over the world. So, to me, the combination of these two, and then people are also looking at the digital delivery. They're very impressed, I must tell you, by, and Prime Minister actually has a very interesting concept here. He called it democratizing technology. That technology was there, okay? Democracy was there. But if you apply technology in the right way, you can do it on a scale and effectiveness which will make delivery something of a realm which could not have been thought of before. Now, we are all sitting here, not always aware that actually last 3 years have seen a revolution. That if you look at the scale of our digital delivery, take any program, these yojanas which people talk about. Any of these programs is actually the size of a country, a big country, sometimes a continent, sometimes multiple continents. That if during COVID, we started this Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana to give food to people because at that time their livelihood had been disrupted. Look at the scale of the beneficiaries of this. This is more than North America and Europe put together. You take even something like Mudra. Look at the beneficiaries of Mudra. Okay, you can say, okay, that's just a transfer. See something like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, giving support for housing. We have delivered 3 crore houses. 3 crores is 30 million. Okay? An average Indian family is 4.8. That's the size of an average family. So 4.8 into 30 million is 140 million. That means we have built houses, you can say, for everybody in Japan in the course of this Modi Sarkar. And I can, and I give you any example. You all heard of Ujjwala. The number of beneficiaries of Ujjwala are more than the population of Germany. So just think today of the scale of this transformation which is happening. So for the world today, one, of course, they are saying, yes, this India is changing. Very deep, fundamental changes. These guys are putting, poverty behind them. The rate of poverty has dropped dramatically from almost 20% extreme poverty to 10%. But more than that, they are looking at what we are doing on the digital side and saying they are innovative, they are inventive, but they also have mastered how to deploy. And in that deployment are lessons. There are huge business opportunities in that deployment. So today it is, the India stack, it is the 5G, it is the Covaxin. These are the things which are really actually creating a buzz about India. Now, we spoke a little bit about exports. Many years governments have been pushing exports. Every government does it. Okay. Again, there was a plea that embassies should be more active. I can tell you embassies have changed. Today, anybody who's looking for embassy support, the embassy actually receives them. They give you so much support that you will say, okay, thank you, I will. But I want you to know the kind of level of attention and priority that it gets. Last year, Piyush Goyalji was asked by Prime Minister to set a target in export of goods, merchandise. So there was a big churning, and finally they said, okay, 400 billion will be the target, which was substantially above the previous best. And mind you, we were coming out of COVID, so global demand is suppressed at that time. Now, to do this, it was decided every embassy must be involved, but it's not enough to leave it to the business, there's a commercial representative in an embassy. So the commercial representative should also be there, and the ambassador should also be there. Then the really serious message went out, which was when all embassies, all ambassadors and all representatives were gathered, and I was there and Piyushji was there and others were there. Prime Minister said, no, I am going to take part in this. I am going to send a message of seriousness to all of them, because if the Prime Minister of India is willing to spend one afternoon with key embassies saying, look, you please tell me what are your market access problems, what are the trade barriers you are seeing, what is it that is holding you back, why is it that your response time, and it was not just he came in very, and this is Modi, okay, he came in fully prepared, complete diligence, with tough questions. So why I say this to you is today the kind of focus that we have on exports. As someone who's been in the government now for more than 45 years, I have never seen this kind of push that we are making. So when I look at the kind of targets which Commerce Minister laid out yesterday, I have every confidence that we will achieve it, because with this kind of drive and this kind of talent that I see, I am very, very convinced that we can move forward. Now, there are aspects of business which are sometimes not only business, not only economically driven. One of which is mobility. Okay, this is the most service-centric city and state of this country. So again, you should know that we are giving great priority to mobility arrangements. And what does mobility arrangements mean? Mobility arrangements start with the difficulties that all of you are facing getting business visas and the waiting times that you have. I have been nagging, and I use the word nagging. I have been nagging my counterparts in America, in England, in Germany, saying, look, shorten the time, my business is getting hurt, why is there waiting time? And I will continue to push that. To me today, in my relationship with the US, this is right up there, okay? Because I do feel visa delays does harm the business prospects of the country. A second part of it actually is students. We have 1 million students abroad. Now, many of them some of them have gone on scholarship, many of them are paying for their education. It's important they have a work opportunity. So how do we expand the working prospects of students? That is again something which we are pushing very strongly. The third is what happens, what is the regime of mobility? We do not want people to go illegally, irregularly, to go at salaries less than they deserve, to not get the protections which they should. So we want today mobility agreements with important economic players. So that too is a priority which Prime Minister Modi has set for the Foreign Ministry. And we have, we have today agreements with a number of European countries. In 22 specific professions, we have an agreement with Japan. Some of them are easier to implement, some of them are harder. Japan, for example, requires that you learn the language, so we try doing that setup so that there's an enabling exam which will allow people to go. In some cases, then they don't need language. They are quite willing to accept people, and then have them adjust linguistically. So the entire, I would say, the visas issue, visas for business, visas for students, visas for professionals, visas for people, I mean, you know, you'd be amazed, I was amazed at how many Indians actually today work in international professions. The largest proportion of seafarers in the world today are from India. I have not seen a number for airline crew, but just anecdotally looking at the number of flights I go to and see the number of Indians actually working in non-Indian carriers, I suspect that may well be the case there as well. That today, Indian talent, Indian skills, Indian, contributions, we are actually preparing for an era of a global workplace. And this city is the leader of that. So how do we set in place policies for a global workplace? This is, again, a big transformation that is happening. And then, of course, there is the whole issue of free trade agreements. Because free trade agreements are good when you get something, they're not so good when you have to concede something. And how do you get the balance right? Because one of our problems has been that our SMEs particularly have had a very difficult time in the last 3 decades, that they have had to deal with subsidies, they have had to deal with, to be honest, unfair competition, they've had a problem of scale. And that is, when people keep saying, why are we importing so much from China? I think it's a very legitimate question. But then they should be honest enough to also accept the answer. Have we done what we should have done to support our SMEs? Can anybody actually truthfully say, yes, we did our best? Have we actually made industry, setting up industry easier or harder? Easier to do business has happened in the last 9 years. You all remember the period before that. I don't want to say they had a program of harder to do business, but effectively they did. So the point is, how do we today negotiate the right agreements and ensure that our businesses, that in our own country, we cannot allow foreign businesses to have a better deal in our country than our own businesses. That makes no sense. So I think to call it protectionism is actually unfair. That we are actually today, a country which does not protect its industry. People are waking up to it today. Even in Europe, they are waking up to it. If you're not protecting your industry, you're not growing your industry, you're actually undermining your employment. You're destroying your social fabric. And if you see a lot of what is happening in the politics of America and Europe today, their politics is waking up to this, that they have lost jobs, and you know where those jobs have gone. So how do we reverse this trend? This is today a very, very key challenge. It's not something which we can do in a year or 2 or even in 5, because we are actually, we have 30 years of a problem to address. But I'm convinced that if we give sustained support to SMEs, if we do production-linked incentives, if we make it easier to do business, if we reduce regulations, what Prime Minister calls ease of living, then all of this is eminently possible. So I would like today to reassure you, you have a government which puts the interest of the Indian citizen, of the Indian worker, of the Indian business first. Because to me, those interests are not different. They are part of a package. And at times, like in any political international situation, we will come under pressure. You saw that happen during the Ukraine, conflict. That we were under pressure to make choices which were frankly not in our national interest. And we chose because Prime Minister was very clear in this regard. I mean, his direction to me is that we have to put the interests of the Indian consumer first. So whether it was energy import, whether it was, fertilizer import, these are all actually very tough decisions that we have made in the last year. But again, it's part of that overall outlook of Atmanirbhar Bharat, that we are today thinking for ourselves, standing up for ourselves, inventing for ourselves, innovating for ourselves. This is really the difference that is there. It is a difference today where I think the state of Karnataka and the city of Bengaluru is a particular contributor and a leader. So it is very important that your contribution to national progress continues, that your choices which will make that contribution faster or not are the right ones. And I think we are entering today an era, a 25-year era, an era where there are huge possibilities. That even in a post, one of the reasons the world is also looking at us. We are the economy, the large economy, which has rebounded fastest out of COVID. That a 7% growth rate is not something which, any major economy is actually likely to get. So they are, between reliable supply chain, trusted digital provider, a large economy, a startup culture, a global talent pool which is available for the global workplace. These are really the kind of expectations that the world has of us. And I think these are the expectations which will make us a very successful sourcing hub. I want to impress on you, as I said, that today we have a leader who cares about the country, who cares about the employment of this country, who cares about the technology and the inventions and the innovations of this country, who actually has been personally a source of inspiration, who has a vision for the next 25 years. And that is something, I think, which all of us have to collectively work forward to contribute, each in our own way. And I really, again, thank you today for the event, which has allowed me to share many of these views and concerns.
Thank you, sir. It was indeed a learning process for all of us to hear the words of wisdom of the Honorable Union Minister. Let's give a round of applause and thank him for taking time off. Thank you, sir. And one more good news for all of us is he has agreed to take a couple of questions, depending on if you directly come to the question, you can take more questions. If you start speaking your views, we'll take less questions. We'll start with the lady. I think that's best. Yes, yeah. The mic will come to you. Please, I'll mic. ಒಬ್ರು ಆ ಕಡೆನೇ ಇದ್ಬಿಡಿ, ಒಬ್ರು ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇರಿ.